Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. We are proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. These programs are recorded and are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am Martha Brown. I am your facilitator for the day, and I want to present to you Peggy Spear from the Amon Carter Museum of American Art. A little bird told me that Peggy was going to talk about abstracts today, and I think it's going to be a wild day. I can't wait. Peggy, it's all yours whenever you're ready.
All right, let me pull this bad boy up. All right, so Martha, you are correct. It is abstract today. And we are looking at all works on paper. I think they're even all lithographs. And they're some of the most abstract things that I could find in our well, I mean, everything, there's a lot abstract, but these all have a kind of similar feel to them in that it almost everything kind of reads as a full pattern versus abstracted depictions of something that's real. So we're going to start with this lithograph called Duo Duet 3. What do we see?
What
These
do
are
we see?
like a Rorschach, or what are they called? Rorschach?
Yeah. Looks like lemons on one side and pears on the other.
Lemons and pears. I like that. What else do people see?
Yellow blobs.
You just see the blobs.
Yeah.
The blobs.
A lot of blobs. You're not wrong.
It reminds me a little bit of a microscope and what one would see on the left.
Martha.
Yeah, I'd say microscope too. Yeah.
All right. You science-minded people. These not actually what you would see under a microscope, but she was very interested in this idea of the micro and the macro. And so she would often create these patterns that had a little bit of a under a microscope feel that were all cosmos type of situation. So while she's not looking under a microscope, that was often what her work would look like. So very good, Martha. You get the gold star today.
All right, Martha.
And Dawn, yes,
No,
And
Martha
Dawn,
said first.
yes.
Or yeah, Don. I see the lemons like Paulette, but I see oysters on the other side.
Oysters, I can see oysters.
Mhm.
Oysters on a half shell.
I don't look
So,
like oysters
yeah.
to me.
Those are the kind that would make
Man.
it stick.
Does
I
this-
do not have a fantasy good enough for abstract.
Maybe you'll get one today, Yetta.
So maybe
Do you guys think these colors make you feel happy, make you feel sad, make you feel anxious, make you feel any sort of emotion?
They look kind of happy.
Well, yellow is a happy color.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I like the yellow for
Yeah.
sure.
So are orange and purple or yellow and purple, are they complementary colors in any way?
They are.
So they
Exactly.
go together well.
Yes, they do go together well.
Red and blue make purple, so they're opposites on the color wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it
So-
feels, it doesn't feel like they're in conflict with each other. Or
No.
unless, does someone feel like they're the two sides are in conflict with each other?
No.
No?
No,
They look like they could be two separate paintings.
they do,
Mhm.
yes.
Yes.
It does feel as if it's, the term you can use is a diptych. It does feel like it's a diptych where they're not part of the same, but they're on one sheet of paper and it's kind of large. It's 19 by 29 inches. So it's not it would have a presence when you saw it.
Peggy, what is that term you just used?
Diptych.
Can you spell it for us, please?
Ooh. And we're recording this, so
Try.
I don't want to go on record as not knowing how to spell. Dipytch.
Oh, okay. Got it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I still think I didn't spell it right. But yeah, like a diptych or a triptych, like often
Finish my message I was sending to you.
I've heard about triptychs, so diptych makes sense if there are two. Thank
yeah,
you.
die, two.
Yes.
And
Okay.
so oftentimes you like diptychs are very common in like religious iconography, the things that would be placed on an altar where it's a saint and the icon, you know, or anything that hangs 2 by 2.
Everything.
Triptych is when it opens, it can open 3 ways across. So
You bring Paulette's cheese dip. How come I get the
So Peggy, on this orange one over here, they look like yellow lemons on top of Q-tips.
oh my gosh, you're right. There's that Q-tip top up there, huh?
Yeah.
Somebody's been shopping.
Yeah,
Oh.
giant Q-tips, tiny lemons.
They don't
Yes.
look like Q-tips to me.
You know, what they look like to me is when you've separated a bunch of egg yolks in a bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Oh, my word.
You're right.
Omelet.
There's a
What it
lot of,
represents to me is that the right-hand side is the seed and the left-hand side is the fruit.
oh,
Good, Steve.
Okay.
See, you have all kinds of answers.
and I love it. That's why bringing these abstracts to you guys, it helps me see these artworks in a totally different way that I would never have thought. It's a little key to all of your brains.
I think the same thing.
Circles are also a very, she's still creating art, I believe, but circles are also a very common theme in her work. And so we're seeing closed circles and open circles, ovals. But you guys, you know, you all hit on it, this idea of the macro and the micro, the larger and the whole, and how it all works in the universe. She was very interested in that, and her colors were
Who cares?
was really what she was interested in too, the saturation and the hues of color. So the color is just as important to her, more so than some of the designs and pattern. And she taught at Parsons. I don't think she's teaching anymore, but she taught at Parsons School of Design in New York. So if any of you watch Project Runway, that is the same organization, school where she taught. Oop, let me make it big. All right, so now we'll go to our next one. You do not need to adjust your monitor. This is what it looks like.
I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
It's got that moire effect when you see all the little pixelated dots.
Yeah.
That
That
hurts
looks to
my
me
eyes.
like that looks to me like one of the visions Martha might have seen back in the 60s.
Peace and love. Peace and love, Phil.
Wait, can I tell you, Phil? I swear, did you guys look at my notes? This artist would often create graphic patterns that were inspired by hallucinations, intoxication, chance, and hypnosis. So that hater might have been smoking something that made him think like he's seeing what you're seeing.
Right on. We were talking about the 60s yesterday, so that comment was perfect, Phil. Yeah.
It's
Looks
almost
like a
one of
DNA
those.
strand.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also one of those, you go to, these things and you have to see a number in it.
Oh,
Yes, it does.
yeah.
I've already tried
Almost
that.
like
I
when you go to
couldn't.
the eye doctor.
Yeah, I
focus
tried
my
too,
eyes
but
when
I
it's
couldn't.
seizing.
So
But
a
it's-
color blindness test.
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is called Ripple, which I feel like it's a good name. You can kind of see the blue lines particularly jump out to me as the ripple, but the red and the yellow are all doing the same work. So, but he was a British artist. And when he lived in England, he was really inspired by the surrealists. So those were the guys that were, gosh, surrealism is so cool. It's those people that were kind of inspired by the subconscious. They would just create and with autonomy. There was no real things were dreamlike, didn't always make sense. So some surrealists could be like Dali with the melted clocks, with the ants crawling on the clocks, or Magritte, where it's a man he has an apple as a head with a bowler hat on. But you would be familiar with surrealist art, just walking with, but you might not know it's a surrealist painting. So he was really close with the surrealists, And then World War II broke out. And so the studio he was working in Paris relocated to New York. And because of the scene he was in New York, he moved to ABEX, Abstract Expressionism. And it was then he started, I think he, you know, he was hanging out with the avant-garde artists just because of how he was already hanging out with the avant-garde in England or in Europe. And so he started doing more of these ABEX paintings that eventually he was very into his writing about this type of art as well, the theoretical idea of letting the unconscious take over. And so that was what guided a lot of what his creation was. And so his writings about letting the chance and things happen, whether you're in a trance or hypnotized, just kind of letting your hand do the motion, is what eventually inspired artists like Pollock, who you know, the famously just slinging paint onto a canvas and, you know, making his artworks like that.
Like
So-
automatic writing.
Yes, exactly. And that's what the surrealists were doing, but he was taking it from writing and moving it to straight up
Art.
line.
Wow.
And so he was considered one of the premier artists in printmaking, because he was coming up with new printmaking techniques that allowed him to use multiple colors on one plate, which I'm
Yeah.
not really good at explaining how all of the science of that works. And so he etched a lot. He was a printmaker. And so he went to the Tamarind workshop in LA to do the lithography there, which wasn't the medium he was always working in, but allowed him to kind of transfer that work on paper method to a different type of work in paper.
So
Do we like this one? What do we think?
that's okay.
Just okay. Who else thinks it's meh?
It's colorful.
I don't like the colors. I don't like the green and pink.
No. Yeah,
It's
this
not
one,
something you'd want in your living room to stare at all day. I don't think.
it's busy. Yeah,
How big is this,
Um,
please?
14 by 22 inches. So it's not as big as the last one.
If someone gave me this and told me it was an original, I'd give it back.
Yes, I agree with you.
Do you?
And
Or
for,
I'd re-gift it.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
For those who are the science minded, he went to school for chemistry and geology, which once I learned that he went to school for geology, then I kind of looked at it, it was almost like the striations in rocks and things like that. That's, I'm sure, not what he was thinking when he made this, but it kind of, you know, how his mind might have been filtering things.
Rings of wood.
Yeah,
Looks like a river system.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can see
Oh.
that
yeah.
Yeah.
abstractly.
Peggy, I want to ask you an aside. Do you have anything in your collection that are pictures from crop circles?
I don't know. We have one of the largest American photography collections in the country. And
Mhm.
so I'm sure somewhere nested in there, but I have not come across any yet in my research.
Okay. All
But
right.
we shouldn't be looking for any what do you call it, displays or stuff on unidentified paranormal stuff.
Paranormal. Yeah,
Shucks.
we can, I don't know. I haven't actually done a search like that. Now I'm really curious. I'm not going to promise you I can find anything, but I'm going to make that a topic if I can.
Okay, thanks.
Right, yeah.
Ooh, I love that kind of stuff. We would get a lot of artworks then with orbs. There's always the question of what's that orb? And it's always, oh, the flash hitting the reflection of dust.
I always thought that painting was Picasso, not Picasso, somebody that's called, this is called Scream or something. Or
Monk.
what's that?
Monk.
Munch.
Okay, they always look kind of alien to me.
Yes.
Is that artwork still missing? Does anyone know?
I don't think so.
They found it? Man, if
Seems
you
like I
guys want to
read-
watch, if you're hunkering down now that Omicron is kicking up again, there is a documentary series on Netflix. Oof. I can't remember what it's called. I can email it to Martha and she can share with y'all. But it's about the Stuart Gardner heist that happened in Boston, where all of the artworks were stolen on St. Patrick's Day. Are you guys familiar with this heist?
No.
Oh my God, you guys are in for a treat. So in the 90s, I believe, and it basically revolutionized how museum security works now. There was an art heist in a museum in Boston, and no one can figure this out. It's not a cold case, because this documentary, and there's a podcast too that tied with it, kind of brought everything back up again. But there is police officer, they think it's someone dressed up as a Boston police officer, went into the building. They were in the building for 83 minutes and stole, I think, something like 13 artworks, 12 paintings, and one sculpture. And it's the only Rembrandt Nocturne that exists, and that went missing. And they used razor blades to cut it out from the frames.
Oh,
So
no.
all of the frames are still empty and hang in this museum per the will statutes that Isabella had created, but the artworks are still missing. And so no one knows, because like certain alarms weren't tripped and they knew exactly where certain things were. So no one knows. There's speculation. Was it an inside job? Was it a mafia job? There's all these different theories on what it was. And so that documentary series on Netflix kind of walks you through the different information and theories and things like that. It's really kind of a fun watch.
Well, that's what I'm going to do this afternoon. Thank you.
I cannot remember what it's called. I want to say it's.
The name of the show is called "This Is a Robbery: The World's Biggest Art Heist."
Yeah, and if you guys are podcast listeners, there's another name for the podcast too. But it's interviewing the security guards, the director of the museum at the time, the head of security, different police officers, other art robbers. It's very, very fascinating.
Yeah, it looks like this is a 5-part series on Netflix.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah, so give it a watch if you like true crime and you like art, because I know y'all do.
Yes.
All right, that was a total side rail.
Ooh.
Okay, I heard some oohs.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I love that. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's air conditioning ducting.
Yeah. Or one of those, what are they called? Those that can walk the
Slinky.
stairs.
Oh, it's
Like
slinky.
these.
A slinky.
The slinky.
I see an apple strudel, like the thinly sliced apples, or like a ratatouille
I
almost.
can see that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm just hungry. So this one, there's not much I could find about this particular artist or this artwork at all, but it's called Spooky Loop. Does it feel spooky to anyone?
No.
Oh,
It doesn't look too spooky to me, but
That yellow and blue one was spookier.
The last one?
Yeah. Yes.
Is it- Okay, so coming from this to this, does this feel as calming or more chaotic than the last one?
this one is calming.
Calming.
everything's kind of in order.
What makes you feel it's a little more subdued?
I heard someone say there's more order to this
There's
one. and
more
I like
order
that
to
as
it.
well.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Order
And
and
just the
abstract.
colors, it's just more, I mean, there's just 1 or 2 colors, but intensified.
Yeah, yeah.
This is almost the new color for this year, Very Perry,
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
the
I didn't
Pantone
see, is
color.
that the Pantone color this year?
Yes.
Oh, cool. I have to look at that.
This one I wouldn't give back. I would keep
No, I'll
Correct.
keep this one
I
also.
would too, Yetta.
This is a pretty one. This one is pretty big. It's 25 by 34 inches. So I feel like it would be one of those, if you had it on a wall. I know you shouldn't have it like this in the bathroom, but it would be nice to just kind of stare at if you were in the bath.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So you say this Manuel Fuentes is not very well
I couldn't
documented?
find much about the artist. No, he's Chilean. That's about the only thing I could find. And the thing you're probably wondering, but we've looked at a British and a Chilean artist now. Because of the Tamarind workshop being in LA, it was really it was in LA, but it was for any nationally, any renowned artist would get invited there to push their practice in a medium that was starting to die, which was lithography. And so there are artists from all over the world who would come there, and the Amon Carter was the recipient of all of the artwork from that workshop. So that's why we have artists that, even though they're not American, I don't know if he eventually was a naturalized citizen, I don't know this, but they're not American, but they were working in an American workshop. So we did receive their prints.
Huh. This is almost like one of those paintings where the dimensions look like they're off, like those where the stairs, people walk on stairs that are going all different directions that don't connect.
Escher.
Oh, like an
Escher.
Escher, yeah.
Yes.
It's almost like an etcher because it looks like there's this first loop divides into two loops going in a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah, like here it starts to break in a way that doesn't. All right, we've got a couple more. Oof. This one is a tough one. I debated even putting it because it's really hard to see.
Wow.
I'd give this one back.
Now, there's your eye test.
Yeah,
Say that again,
exactly.
Yes.
Phil?
Yes.
Phil, what did you say? I didn't hear you.
He said
Phil?
that's her eye test.
Oh.
So, yeah, colorblind test.
Boy, it sure is. Oh, that
Yeah,
hurts.
I know. So
Yeah.
for those who might not be able to see the slight variation in color, it's a very soft pink with almost like a tangerine gridding in different places on it almost looks like a blueprint, but a very jazzy blueprint in the colors that the artist selected.
I do.
And so this is another Untitled, so hard to.
It looks like a person in a doorway.
I can see that.
Person in a doorway.
Yeah. You see the doorway, it's very symmetrical.
Covered
Kind
patio.
of, kind of a
Oh.
person standing in the doorway.
Oh.
Okay, to me it looks like early, like Atari graphic style person standing in a doorway.
It's
Yes.
not a realistic person. It's just kind of more of a shadow of a
Yeah,
person.
it's too faded out for me.
What's weird to me is if I turn my head, it changes shapes on it.
Tour.
Oh,
bit,
it
yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one, I'm kind of with Myra. I love the colors, don't love the artwork. I think
Right.
Yeah,
send
exactly.
it back.
I mean, when you first look at this, when it comes on, all you see is pink, and then the lighter oranges, tangerine colors, just kind of slowly are seen by your eyeball. I
Yeah,
guess.
it's like
Creeps in.
vibrating almost.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this particular artist, I think he's still practicing over 7 decades. He's been practicing art. But he was a Cali guy. And so Cali abstract was pretty different than what was happening on East Coast abstract. And this was right before he moved to New York. Maybe I'm confusing my artist. I am confusing my artist. But he was really, really interested in, again, this idea of chance and this idea of circumstance. He was a Buddhist or practiced Buddhism, so he was really into this idea of things just happening the way that they happen, trying to place order to some things. And so for a while, he went through a grid phase. This was one of his, as he was kind of entering into that grid phase. But he was really interested in the experimentation and trying of new practice versus creating self-expression. While that was something he was doing, he was not focused on that. So he's not really lumped into any particular movement of art because his art evolved and changed so much over time. He doesn't fit nicely in the canon as a particular artist or another.
I agree with you. You said it's kind of like a blueprint, but because all the lines are very, very well drawn.
Yeah, there's a lot of control.
Yeah.
But nonsensical control. And I have a quote. He says he was found he was trying to capture art with the mind for the necessity of control, merging it with the yearning to fly. So while there's things that are very concrete and regulated and formulated, it's still nonsensical. So you've got that necessity for order with the yearning to fly, because then it's like, well, what are we looking at? We don't really know. So he did this at Tamarin as well, like the last artist we just looked at, and the artist before that. So these are all done in that lithography workshop in California. And we got 2 more. We'll go quickly.
Ooh, steak.
Exactly.
Well, marbled
Exactly.
steak.
Piece of marble. Yeah.
Steak.
Rose marble.
Did 2 people say the word steak?
I did say,
Yeah.
yes, I said steak.
Oh, that's
It's like
so
a
funny that that's what
well
multiple people
marbled
thought.
piece of-
All right, now I see the steak. Sure.
I agreed with it.
It's marbled steak.
Mhm.
I think it's flowers.
And that's artwork.
Flowers.
Flowers.
Nancy's keeping it floral. We're all just hungry, it sounds like. We are all focused on our lunch.
Yeah, I'm ready to eat.
Embryo.
I
So
see a
Ruth
little
is-
bird embryo.
Okay, tell me where you're seeing
Bird
that.
embryo, okay.
I see that over on the right side, there's that the red
Oh, like
circle.
over here?
It looks like
Yeah, yeah.
just like a
Oh,
bird.
man.
Oh, my
I
word.
love that.
Y'all
That's
just.
very natural. So Ruth Asawa, we've looked at her artwork, several different versions of her art. She was a drawer, she was a sculptor, famously sculptor, I mean, all of it, but her sculptures are the ones that are kind of orby, and she would hand weave these metal, beautiful things. But she was invited to, this is another Tamarin lithograph. She was invited down to LA. She lived in San Francisco, mother of 6 kids, and said, later, I'm going to go down to LA for 2 months and do my thing. And she was able to, this is the only time she did lithography work. And what the beauty of this workshop is, it had all the equipment to create, which this equipment is pretty cumbersome and heavy and hard to operate. And so she was able to try this new art form that in 2 months she got really good at doing, and then never returned to this type of artwork again, to this type of medium again that we've been able to find. But she left her family and then went down there and would make dinner every night for all of the printers that were in the studio with her. And then they'd all go back to the studio and continue to work. So she found a new family during those 2 months. But
Well, she was a mother. That was what she knew how to do.
and was dang good at it. So she,
Yeah.
so she was very close knit with her printers, because that while there's the workshop for the artists, printers were also invited to come to and work with this medium as well. So there are a lot of master printers that were there working with these artists at the same time. And so during this stint, she created 54 lithographs, which is quite a bit, and was really interested in kind of, she was a prolific drawer, which kind of just helped keep her mind busy and creative to help figure out what her next, bigger piece would be. And so here she was able to kind of experiment with lithographs, that kind of not obsessive drawing, but that constant drawing she was always doing. And so her works are totally abstract. She was doing the ones that we've seen that look like cabbage or desert flowers.
Okay, yeah.
Past. And so this is not that, but was created during that same time.
In looking at seeing this as a lithograph and how that process works, I mean, it's difficult to see. It looks like there's a lot of work going into making all these lines into what she wanted.
She was particularly good at creating layers.
Yeah.
And so, after she started getting her footing in how this medium worked, she was really good at creating layers. And you can see kind of to what Yetta pointed out, this little baby bird, it's all the same ink, but she's been able to create these little pockets where it feels like this is on top of whatever is under it, you know? And so you can see it too down here, these layerings. So there's depth to something that could feel very flat.
We have a bulb burned out.
And
I mean, if you look at this feels very flat.
Oh,
Oh, I know. I'm
So
picking it up.
bland.
oh. And Nancy was talking about seeing flowers, and I'm now seeing some carnations right about where, yes, right about there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, she was very interested in the natural world. She grew up outside, you know, constantly playing outside and things like that. So she, as a child, was always very interested in the natural world, the natural patterns. So floral is a theme you see in some of her works on paper. So it's not surprised that some of that effect is there. Hey, Steve, see you next week.
No, I'm here. I'm gonna say it seems like a satellite image.
I was just ready to say that, Steve. That
Satellite image.
looks like,
Cool.
looks
Okay,
like
so what are
it's
you
taken-
seeing if you're looking down? What's sending up to your satellite?
Well, you see ocean, kind of water and landmass
Right.
and rivers,
Oh, yeah.
even some cloud cover.
Clouds, yeah. I would say it would be looking at some part of the spectrum that's not the full spectrum.
Right, yeah, it's
Trying to measure the difference between the temperature in the clouds and the temperature on land. or
right, yeah, yeah.
Man, you guys, how interesting.
something.
My brain would not have gone there, and I love it. Now that I can see the the rivers and the cloudy and very cool. Well, we've got one more
Almost night goggles with a different color.
over here.
Yes. If you had night goggles, but had pink instead
Yeah.
of green.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Looking at a garden. All right, so this is our last one.
Good, but it's so beautiful. I love the colors. My word.
Okay, so we got a fan out of Paulette. You like this one? Who else likes this one?
I want to like it.
I like it.
It's colorful. It's
It's
bright.
colorful.
It's
Yetta's face is making me laugh. This was her face. You're not masking it well, Yetta.
I'm just not an abstract person. I don't like these colors. I'm sorry, Paulette.
well,
just-
they're bright. They're colorful anyway.
They're
They're not
colorful,
dull.
yeah.
They're not
But I don't
dull.
like the blue and the red together, and I don't like the red and the green together.
Oh, my
Yes.
word.
But what about the brown? I feel like that's a very interesting color choice. How do people feel about the brown?
I
I
think it
hadn't
looks
even noticed
bad.
it. What was that, Don?
I think it just looks bad. I mean, the brown kind of, I don't know,
Looks like mud.
it seems to draw your attention to it, but I can't find any meaning or anything I could compare it to.
The brown doesn't look like it goes with the rest of the colors.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
No, they
Well,
dropped your chocolate
I'm
bar.
certainly glad she put red into the picture
Mhm.
because the red really brightens it up.
Mhm.
Yeah, even the yellow, for it being yellow, it feels pretty muted.
Yeah,
The
there's
red
a
is the
little bit
one
of
that-
yellow. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I don't know why, but for some reason, the coloring makes me think about the 1880s.
Oh,
If this were a
interesting.
detail in some huge picture,
Okay.
I don't know why, but that just popped into my brain.
It looks like a map to me.
All right.
Ah,
Hey,
Okay.
a
Steve,
treasure
knock it off
map.
with your science.
I know, I mean, because you've got the waterways, you've got an isthmus there, okay? And then you've got the countries. It's almost like a Mediterranean, the countries
Yeah.
around the
That's right.
Mediterranean. And then you got the
Yeah.
Black Sea up in the top, and it just, I don't know.
I'll
Looks like
donate
different
it to
countries.
Paulette.
Say it
Yeah.
again.
This one I'll donate to Paulette.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm so glad.
We sometimes play a game in the galleries called Buy, Burn, or Steal.
Ooh,
This would be gifted. Yetta's would be gifted.
Gifted, okay.
that sounds like
I
a
burn or
great
steal.
game.
You guys have really great games in the library, don't turn in our art gallery.
Yeah, it's a fun one, especially It's from I don't even know what, someone started it years ago here and we always do it. It's just fun because you're like, oh, you'd pay money for that, but you wouldn't for that. Like, it's just interesting to see what people would steal. I see clouds and I see it as like, kind of like Paulette said, or excuse me, Martha, like almost a section of what would have been wallpaper from the 60s or 70s. That's where my
Yeah.
brain went. I feel like you could see that replicated in a powder bathroom or something.
Oh, yeah.
I don't love it, but I don't hate it. I wouldn't wallpaper my house with this.
Maybe with a silvery background.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
give it that flash.
Yes.
But this artist too, I couldn't find a lot about him, but he was an LA artist that was minimalist, kind of like our friend Ed.
Oh,
They were working at the same time in LA with the minimalist kind of work. And then he moved to New York. This is the artist that then moved to New York and immediately switched to Abex. So this feels very Abexy of the artist out of New York at that time.
And Abex is abstract and
Expressionism.
express. Thank you.
what it reminds me, it could almost be like, how I say, a high school dance homecoming type of thing, and this is just kind of scenery around,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know? Just kind
Yeah,
of,
just kind of
just-
filler.
yeah, just there, just,
Oh.
Yeah.
yeah.
This looks like a high school dance in Cary.
Peggy,
Yeah.
is it normal that these abstract painters, that they don't name it because they have no clue what it is, or to give the spectators
Oh,
something to think of?
yeah. I mean, Untitled is a very, with modern artists particularly, they're just either experimenting or they don't want to leave the viewer or they don't really know what it is. So it can be a variety of reasons why it's untitled. Or if it's called Untitled, but then in parentheses, it's like walking the dog. So like, then you're like, okay, well, let's just call walking the dog. So, you know, sometimes it depends on what the artist or the gallerist decides. But yeah, it's very common particularly in abstract art to not have a title.
Okay.
All right, my friends, those were
All right.
our our abstract prints for the day. Next week, we're back with movie theater, and I think it's the Golden Globes next week. That's why I picked movie theater. So
Okay,
bring your
Golden Globes.
popcorn, and we're going to look at all different artworks representing movie theaters.
good, excellent.
Movie
Thanks,
theater.
friends. Happy
Oh.
New Year.
Is it movie theater next
Yeah.
week?
Yeah.
Okay, January 5th. Can you believe that's next year?
No way.
Oh.
Yeah. It
Let's
sneaks
hope-
up on you, doesn't it? Peggy, we appreciate you so
I
much.
love
Thank
y'all. It
you
was
so
another
much,
wonderful
Peggy.
year with you. We'll kick off.
too.
2022.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Happy
Thank
New
you, Peggy.
Year.
Happy New
Bye,
Year.
friends. Be good.
Bye, Peggy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.